She sent one photo to make her ex jealous, but the reply came from a stranger powerful enough to turn a mistake into possession. Before we dive into this story, make sure to subscribe. The glass of wine tasted sharper than it should have. Lena stared at her phone through the dull haze of alcohol and heartbreak, thumb hovering over the screen as music thumped softly from the other room. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty without the familiar weight of someone else's presence. His presence. The man who'd walked out 3 weeks ago with a careless shrug and a list of excuses that still echoed in her head when she tried to sleep. "You're too much. I need space. This isn't working anymore." She laughed under her breath, the sound brittle. Too much. Funny how he'd never complained when she'd been exactly what he wanted. Her phone buzzed. Not a message, just the reminder of an old photo memory. Him, smiling, arms slung around her waist like she belonged there. Anger flared hot and reckless. "Fine," she muttered. "You want to forget me? Let's see how that works out." She stood and walked into the bedroom, flipping on the light. The mirror reflected a woman she barely recognized. Eyes too bright, cheeks flushed, lips parted like she was daring the world to test her. She tugged her sweater off, adjusted the strap of her bra, tilted her head just enough to make the photo dangerous, without being explicit. A reminder. Not of love, of loss. Nah! She snapped the picture quickly before doubt could catch up, her pulse racing as she opened the message thread labeled with his name. The contact photo was still there. She hadn't had the strength to delete it yet. Petty? Yes. Satisfying? Absolutely. She hit send. The moment the image disappeared into the void, regret flickered, but it was drowned out by the thrill of it. Let him see what he walked away from. Let him choke on it. Lena tossed the phone onto the bed and poured another drink, pacing as seconds ticked by. She imagined his reaction. Surprise, jealousy, that familiar, possessive edge creeping back into his voice. Her phone buzzed. She smiled until she looked at the screen. Unknown number. Her stomach tightened. She picked it up slowly, pulse thudding in her ears. The message wasn't long. Mine now. That was it. No emoji, no question mark, no explanation. Just 2 words that made the air in the room feel heavier. "What the hell?" she whispered. Her fingers flew over the screen. "Who is this?" The reply came almost immediately. "You sent the photo to this number. I assume that means you wanted my attention." Her heart slammed against her ribs. She scrolled up, suddenly cold. The contact name was still her ex's, but the number underneath it wasn't. She must have deleted it. Or he'd changed it. Or... oh God. "I sent that by mistake," she typed quickly. "Please delete it." The dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Number, 1 word. Final. "Delete it," she typed again, hands shaking now. "That photo wasn't meant for you." Another pause and then, "I know who it was meant for." Her breath caught. "How?" she whispered aloud. Her phone buzzed again. "Because he belongs to me now, and so do his mistakes." Fear curled low in her stomach, sharp and sudden. This wasn't flirting. This wasn't a prank. There was something deliberate in the way he wrote, controlled, confident, like he wasn't guessing. "Who are you?" she typed. Several seconds passed, long enough for panic to bloom fully. Then, "Someone you shouldn't have invited into your life. But you did." Her pulse raced. "I didn't invite you anywhere." "You sent the door code," he replied. "You just didn't know it." A chill slid down her spine. She stared at the screen, the apartment suddenly feeling too exposed. Too many windows. Too many shadows. "This isn't funny," she typed. "Don't contact me again." She hit block. The screen refreshed. The message thread didn't disappear. Her phone buzzed one last time. "You can block numbers. You can't block claims." Then, as if to drive the point home, another message appeared. Short, sharp, impossible to misunderstand. "Mine now." Lena dropped the phone onto the bed, heart hammering as the weight of those words settled deep in her chest. She had wanted to hurt one man. She had never imagined another would answer, and mean it. Lena didn't sleep. She lay on top of the covers with the lights on, phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline, staring at the ceiling as every shadow in the apartment took on a shape it didn't have before. The words, mine, now replayed in her mind until they lost meaning and became something heavier, something that pressed against her chest every time she tried to breathe. At 3 a.m, she finally did what she should have done hours ago. She opened her contacts. Her ex's name still sat there, mocking her. When she tapped it, her stomach dropped. The number underneath wasn't the one she remembered. Different digits, different country code. "Oh my God," she whispered. She'd sent the photo to a stranger. Not a stranger who laughed it off. Not a stranger who flirted and asked for more. But someone who claimed her like an object and didn't bother pretending it was a joke. Her phone buzzed. She flinched so hard she nearly dropped it. Unknown number. You checked the contact. Good. Her breath caught. "How do you know that?" She typed and erased the message twice before finally sending, "Stop texting me." The reply came slower this time, deliberate. "You don't stop a conversation you started. You decide how it ends." Anger surged, burning through the fear. "I didn't start anything," she typed. "I made a mistake." Mistakes reveal intent. Her jaw clenched. "You're reading way too much into a drunk text." "I don't drink, I don't guess, and I don't waste time." The words were stripped bare of humor. No teasing, no softness. This wasn't a man enjoying the power of attention. This was a man measuring it. "Then leave me alone," she wrote. Another pause. "Tell me your name." Her fingers hovered over the screen. "Why?" "Because I already know it." Her heart slammed violently against her ribs. "You don't know me," she typed quickly. "You live on 12th Street, 3rd floor, corner apartment with the bay window." The room seemed to tilt. Lena shot up, eyes flying to the window as if she expected to see someone standing there. The street below was quiet, dusted with snow, a single street lamp flickering lazily. "How do you know that?" she whispered. Her phone buzzed again. "You work at Calder and Rose Marketing. You drink red wine when you're angry. And you still sleep on his side of the bed." A wave of nausea rolled through her. This wasn't public information. This wasn't something you could pull from a social media profile. Her hands shook as she typed. "This isn't okay. You need to stop." The dots appeared almost immediately. You confuse curiosity with threat. "I'm determining whether you're careless or simply emotional." "Determining?" she echoed out loud. The word sent a cold shiver through her. "What does that mean?" she typed. "It means I decide whether you're a problem." Fear flared sharp and bright. "I'm not anything to you." "Not yet." Her chest tightened. "Then forget about me." "I don't forget what's offered." "I didn't offer myself," she snapped, tears burning behind her eyes. Silence stretched. Then, "You sent an image meant to provoke. That tells me you don't understand the consequences of attention." Her throat closed. She could feel the weight of his gaze through the screen, like he was standing just out of sight, studying her reactions. "This is insane," she typed. "You're scaring me." "Good. Fear makes people honest." Her hands curled into fists. "What do you want?" Another pause, longer this time. "To know if you're worth protecting." Her heart skipped painfully. "Protecting me from what?" she whispered. "From the men who would use that photo to hurt you." Her blood ran cold. "What men?" The reply came instantly. "Men who don't joke." Lena stared at the screen, breath shallow, pulse racing. She finally understood what had been wrong from the start. This man wasn't flirting. He wasn't threatening. He was evaluating her like an asset, deciding whether she was valuable enough to keep safe. And the most terrifying part was the certainty settling deep in her bones. He already knew exactly who she was. The buzzing didn't stop. Lena lay rigid on the bed as her phone vibrated again, then again, the sound cutting through the early morning silence like a warning siren. She hadn't replied after his last message. She hadn't blocked the number again either. Some instinct, fear maybe, told her pretending he didn't exist would only make things worse. The sky outside her window slowly shifted from black to gray. Dawn crept in, cold and unforgiving, revealing an apartment that suddenly felt too small to hide in. Empty wine glasses sat on the counter like evidence of a crime. Her sweater lay abandoned on the bedroom floor, the mirror still holding the ghost of the woman who had taken that photo hours ago. She wasn't that woman anymore. Her phone buzzed again. "Good morning, Lena." Her stomach dropped. "How do you know it's morning?" she whispered, even as her fingers hovered uselessly above the screen. She didn't respond. The phone vibrated once more. "You didn't sleep." "Neither did I." Her chest tightened. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't bravado. There was a precision to the timing, to the way he seemed to know exactly where she was, mentally and physically. She finally typed, "Stop contacting me." The reply came instantly. "Look outside." Her breath caught painfully. "No," she whispered, shaking her head as she rose from the bed. Every step toward the window felt too loud, too deliberate, like she was walking into a trap she'd already sprung. She pushed the curtain aside. 2 black cars idled at the curb below. Not taxis, not ride-shares. They were sleek, identical, engines running despite the cold, windows tinted so dark they reflected the pale morning light like mirrors. Parked perfectly, patiently, waiting. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "This can't be real," she breathed. Her phone buzzed again. Black cars don't text for fun. A tremor ran through her hands. "What do you want from me?" she typed, panic finally breaking through her restraint. Protection requires proximity. "I didn't ask for protection." "You asked for attention. Attention attracts consequences." Her gaze flicked back to the street. One of the car doors opened briefly, just long enough for a man in a dark coat to step out, speak into an earpiece, then return inside. Her knees weakened. "You can't just show up," she typed. "You don't know me." Another pause, longer this time. "I know enough." Her phone buzzed again before she could respond. "You're not in danger. Yet." The word sent a jolt of terror through her. "What does that mean?" she demanded. "It means you made yourself visible last night. And visibility is expensive." Tears burned behind her eyes as anger surged to meet the fear. "You don't get to scare me like this." "I don't scare people for amusement. I scare them so they listen." Her phone rang. Not a text this time. A call, unknown number. Her breath came fast and shallow as the vibration echoed through her palm. She stared at the screen, every instinct screaming at her not to answer. But the cars were still there. The phone stopped ringing, then buzzed with a text. "I'm downstairs." Her pulse spiked violently. "No," she whispered, backing away from the window like it could see her. "No, no, no." Another message appeared. "You have 2 choices. You can come down on your own, or my men will come up." The room seemed to close in around her. "This is insane," she typed with shaking hands. "I'm calling the police." The response was immediate and chillingly calm. "You won't, and we both know why." Her throat tightened as the truth settled in. Because she didn't know his name. Because she didn't know what she'd stepped into. Because something told her that involving anyone else would only make things worse. She glanced at the door, then back at the window. The cars hadn't moved. Her phone buzzed one last time. "I'm not asking twice. He's downstairs." And Lena knew, with a sickening certainty, that ignoring him was no longer an option. No. Lena's legs felt like they didn't belong to her as she stepped into the elevator. The doors slid shut with a soft, final sound, and suddenly the building felt very tall, very quiet. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored wall. Pale, eyes too wide, lips pressed tight like she was holding something back that might shatter her if she let it out. This was a mistake. Every instinct screamed it. But the thought of men coming up to her apartment, of strangers walking into her space, was worse. The elevator chimed. Lobby. She stepped out slowly. The air changed immediately. It wasn't louder or darker, but it felt controlled, like the space itself had been claimed. 2 men stood near the entrance, dressed in dark coats, hands folded casually in front of them. Not guards in the obvious sense. No uniforms. No weapons visible. But their eyes tracked her instantly. "Lena," one of them said politely, opening the door. She flinched at the sound of her name. Outside, the cold bit sharply at her skin. The black cars were closer than she'd expected, engines humming softly, patient as predators that knew their prey would come eventually. One door was already open. She hesitated. Then she saw him. He stood a few feet away from the car, tall and still, coat perfectly tailored, hands relaxed at his sides. He didn't rush toward her, didn't smile, didn't look pleased or amused. He simply watched her approach. Up close, he was worse than her imagination. Older than she'd pictured. Not by much, but enough to give him an air of authority that wasn't learned. Dark hair touched with gray at the temples. Sharp eyes that missed nothing. A face carved by restraint rather than cruelty. Cold, controlled, dangerous. "Get in," he said. Not unkindly, not gently either. She did. The door closed, shutting out the street, the building, the life she'd woken up with that morning. The car smelled faintly of leather and something darker, clean but heavy. "You shouldn't have sent that photo," he said calmly as the car began to move. Her spine stiffened. "I didn't send it to you." "I know," he replied. "That's the problem." She turned toward him, anger pushing past fear. "Then why am I here?" "Because intent doesn't matter," he said. "Exposure does. That doesn't make sense." "It will." He rested his forearm against the door, gaze fixed forward, not on her. Like this conversation wasn't about persuasion, just information. "You sent an image meant to provoke a man who no longer protects you," he continued. "That image didn't stay private." Her heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" "I mean your ex forwarded it," he said. "Not to me." Her stomach dropped. "To who?" "To men who collect leverage," he replied. "Men who don't forgive mistakes. Men who see women as currency." Nausea surged. "You're lying." "I don't need to." Her voice shook. "Then why did you answer?" "Because it crossed my desk," he said simply. She stared at him. "Who are you?" He finally turned his head, eyes locking onto hers with chilling clarity. "Someone who decides what happens next." The car slowed, turning onto a quieter street. She barely noticed. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "I just wanted to hurt one person." "And you hurt yourself instead," he replied. "That happens more often than you'd think." Her hands clenched in her lap. "So what? You scare me, drag me out of my building, and now what?" "Now you listen." The car stopped. They hadn't reached a destination she recognized. Just a private garage entrance, already opening. "The moment that photo left your phone," he said, "you became visible. And visibility, in my world, is dangerous." "Then leave me alone," she snapped. "I'll disappear." He looked at her again, slower this time. "You can't," he said. "They already saw you." Her breath caught painfully. "Then call the police." A faint, humorless smile touched his mouth. "They don't answer calls like this." The car rolled inside. The door closed behind them with a heavy echo. He leaned closer, not invading her space, but close enough that she felt the gravity of him. "You have 2 options," he said quietly. "You can pretend this didn't happen, and hope they lose interest. And the other? You accept my protection. Her heart raced. That's not a choice. It is, he corrected. Just not a comfortable one. And if I refuse? His gaze hardened. Then you're on your own, he said. And that's something I won't allow. The words settled over her like a sentence. Protection isn't optional. And in that moment, Lena understood the truth too late. She wasn't being offered safety. She was being claimed. Lena didn't remember agreeing to anything. That was the thought that echoed in her head as the car doors opened, and she was guided into a building that didn't look like much from the outside. Concrete, discreet, anonymous. The kind of place you could walk past every day, without ever wondering what happened inside it. Inside, everything changed. The air was warmer, quieter, heavy with intention. They led her through a secure entrance, past a desk with no receptionist, down a hallway where every door required a code or a keycard. Cameras followed her movement openly, not bothering to hide the fact that she was being watched. You can't keep me here, she said, voice tight. I'm not, he replied calmly. You can leave. She stopped walking and turned to face him. Then why does it feel like I can't? Because you understand the alternative, he said. They entered a suite, expansive, immaculate, overlooking the city from a distance that felt deliberate. Not high enough to dominate, not low enough to feel exposed. Neutral ground designed for containment. This is where you'll stay, he said. Her heart slammed. I didn't agree to this. You agreed to stay alive, he replied. This is how. A woman appeared almost instantly, dark-haired, professional. I'm Sophia, she said politely. I'll take care of anything you need. I don't need a handler, Lena snapped. Sophia's smile didn't falter. Of course not. That response unsettled her more than resistance would have. He removed his coat and set it aside, movements unhurried. There are rules, he said. They're not negotiable. Of course there are, Lena muttered. No leaving the property without clearance, he continued. No unscreened calls, no posting, no contact with your ex. That last one's easy, she said bitterly. His gaze flicked to her. Good. And if I break a rule? She asked. You won't, he replied simply. The certainty in his voice made her skin prickle. Someone will be with you at all times, he added, discreetly. I don't want a shadow, she said. You have one whether you want it or not. Anger surged. You're treating me like a prisoner. He stepped closer, not looming, but unyielding. I'm treating you like someone whose life is no longer private. That's not my fault. No, he agreed. But it is my problem. Her pulse raced. Why? The question slipped out before she could stop it. He studied her for a long moment, then answered. Because once I intervene, I don't walk away. The words were quiet. They were also terrifying. The hours that followed blurred together. Her phone was replaced with another. Same number, same apps. But everything filtered. Her bags arrived from her apartment without explanation. Her clothes were arranged neatly in the bedroom, personal items placed with unsettling precision. Every movement was anticipated. Dinner was served without being ordered. Water appeared when she reached for it. Someone always knew where she was. That night she stood at the window, city lights far away, feeling the weight of something irreversible settle over her. This isn't protection, she said when he appeared behind her. This is control. Protection requires control, he replied. And obedience? She challenged. Yes. The word landed like a verdict. She turned to him. You can't honestly expect me to accept this. I expect you to survive, he said. Your acceptance is secondary. Her breath caught. You're not pretending, are you? No. She searched his face for doubt, for hesitation. Found none. You really think you can own me? She whispered. He met her gaze, steady and unflinching. I don't share what I claim, he said. The chill that ran through her had nothing to do with fear anymore. It was the realization that this wasn't posturing. He wasn't threatening. He meant every word. The name followed her everywhere. Not spoken aloud, not yet, but present in the way doors opened before she reached them, in the way staff nodded with quiet deference, in the way guards straightened subtly when she passed. Lena felt it like a shadow stitched to her spine, invisible, heavy, inescapable. Luxury softened the edges but didn't erase the shape. The suite was immaculate. Sunlight poured through tall windows, warming stone floors and polished wood. There were fresh flowers every morning, changed before they wilted. A wardrobe appeared overnight with clothes in her size, her colors, her style, too accurate to be coincidence. Meals arrived unannounced, timed to moments when her stomach betrayed her nerves. Surveillance threaded through it all. Cameras were obvious here, not hidden like eyes you weren't meant to notice. These were reminders. Lines drawn in glass and steel. She learned quickly where she could walk without a guard appearing, and where she couldn't. She learned which hallways led somewhere, and which looped back, gentle but firm. Rules were recited once and never repeated. No leaving without clearance, no unscreened calls, no social media, no contact with your past. Protection, he called it. Ownership, she felt. "You're safe," he told her one evening as they stood in the study overlooking the city. He didn't touch her. He didn't have to. His presence filled the room like pressure. "From who?" she asked. "From everyone," he replied, "including yourself." Anger flared. "That's not protection." "It is when mistakes get people killed," he said calmly. Days blurred, then nights. She slept lightly, waking to the quiet shift of guards changing posts, to the low hum of systems she didn't understand. Sometimes she'd find him awake in the early hours, jacket off, sleeves rolled, reading reports she wasn't meant to see. He never told her where he went. He never asked where she wanted to be. She learned the difference between being protected and being owned in the smallest moments. Protected was when a guard stepped in front of her without being asked. Owned was when her phone rang and someone answered before she could. Protected was when he sent a doctor after she mentioned a headache. Owned was when the appointment was already scheduled. She tested the boundaries once. Only once. She asked to go for a walk. Just outside. Just air. "No," he said. "I won't go far." "No," he repeated. "And if I go anyway?" His gaze hardened, not angry, not raised. Final. "Then I lock the doors." The words settled like iron. That night, she sat on the edge of the bed and finally cried. Not loudly, not dramatically. Quiet tears that soaked into expensive fabric and disappeared without evidence. She cried for the woman who'd sent a photo in anger and woken up claimed by a stranger. She cried because part of her understood why he did this, and hated that understanding. It was during one of those long, quiet afternoons that the truth began to surface. Sophia brought her tea and lingered just a second too long. "Someone called earlier," she said carefully. "From your old life." Lena's heart jumped. "Who?" Sophia hesitated. "A man said he was concerned." "Did he say his name?" "Yes," Sophia said. "He was very eager to help." Lena's stomach dropped. "What did he say?" she asked. "That he'd made a mistake," Sophia continued. "That he'd shared something he shouldn't have. That he didn't realize who he was dealing with." The room seemed to tilt. "Shared what?" Lena whispered. Sophia met her eyes, sympathy flickering briefly before it was smoothed away. "A photo." Lena's breath left her in a rush. Her ex. The memory clicked into place. His silence after the breakup, the way he'd disappeared too easily, the sudden change of number, the way the reply hadn't come from him at all. "He sold me out," Lena said, the words hollow. Sophia didn't contradict her. Later, when he returned, Lena didn't scream. She didn't accuse. She simply looked at him with a clarity that hurt. "It was him," she said. "My ex." He nodded once. "Yes. You knew." I confirmed, he corrected. Before I came to you. Rage and betrayal twisted together inside her chest. You didn't save me from him, she said. You saved me because of him. He stepped closer, voice low. I saved you because you were exposed. And now? She asked. Now, he said, eyes dark and certain. You're under my name. The realization struck her hard and cold. She hadn't been rescued. She'd been transferred. And the man she'd trusted enough to hurt someone else for had sold her to the highest power he could find. The first threat didn't arrive loudly. It came wrapped in politeness. Lena was in the sitting room when the message was delivered, not to her phone, but to his. She knew because the air shifted the moment he read it. He went still, eyes darkening, jaw tightening in a way she'd learned meant calculation, not anger. Who is it? She asked quietly. Someone curious, he replied. That word sat wrong. Curious implied interest. Interest implied attention. And attention, she'd learned, was dangerous. He didn't tell her more. He rarely did. Instead, security doubled without explanation. Guards changed routes. Doors that had once opened with a glance now required confirmation. Even the windows seemed to watch more closely. She felt it in her body before she understood it in her mind. The sense of being hunted. Am I in danger? She asked him that night. He didn't answer immediately. That alone was enough. Yes, he said finally. But not from me. Sleep became impossible after that. Every sound sharpened. Every silence stretched too long. She started noticing men she hadn't seen before. New faces among the guards, harder eyes, hands never far from concealed weapons. She wasn't just protected anymore. She was being defended. The second threat came with teeth. A package arrived at the gate the following afternoon. No return address. No note. Just a box, small and unassuming. He didn't let it inside. He didn't let her see it either. But she saw the aftermath. Blood on the concrete. Not much. Just enough. They're testing, he said later, voice low, seeing how close they can get. Who? She asked. A man who doesn't believe claims unless they're proven, he replied. He thinks you're leverage. The word made her stomach turn. I'm not a thing, she snapped. He stepped closer, eyes sharp. To him, you are. Fear surged hot and fast. Then tell him to back off. A humorless smile touched his mouth. That was the box. The escalation was swift after that. A car followed them one evening, too close, too deliberate. A shot fired into empty air near the perimeter 2 nights later. A message sent through channels she wasn't meant to know existed. He tightened control. She felt it in every restriction, every denied request, every quiet command issued without her consent. This isn't protection, she said bitterly. This is a cage. It's a shield, he corrected. And I'm the target, she replied. Yes. The honesty stunned her. The attempt came when she least expected it. A routine change, a small allowance, 5 minutes of fresh air in a secure courtyard she'd walked through dozens of times. Guards positioned, cameras live, everything controlled. Until it wasn't. The explosion wasn't loud, but it was precise. Smoke bloomed near the outer wall, thick and blinding. Alarms screamed. Shouting erupted from every direction at once. Someone grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. Not a guard. Her scream tore free as she was yanked backward, body colliding with someone solid and unfamiliar. A hand clamped over her mouth, the scent of smoke and metal filling her lungs. Quiet! A voice hissed near her ear. You're worth more alive. Panic exploded through her. She kicked, clawed, bit, felt the sting of pain as something sharp grazed her side. The world spun violently, chaos blurring into terror. Gunfire cracked. Shouts, furious, lethal. The grip on her tightened, dragging her toward the smoke, toward an opening she hadn't known existed. Then suddenly, force. Her captor was ripped away from her with brutal efficiency. She stumbled, falling hard to the ground as bodies collided nearby. Someone shielded her instantly, dragging her back, covering her with their body as bullets tore through the air. She heard his voice then. Not calm, not controlled. Feral. "Touch her again," he roared, "and I burn your entire bloodline." The threat cut through everything. Hands pulled her up, guards swarmed, the smoke thinned. She was alive, barely. As she was rushed inside C, shaking violently, one truth echoed louder than the alarms still screaming through the compound. This wasn't about possession anymore. It was war, and she had almost been taken. The room smelled like antiseptic and smoke. Lena sat on the edge of the bed, knees pulled to her chest, a blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders that did nothing to stop the trembling. Her hands were scraped, her side burned where something sharp had cut through fabric and skin, but the physical pain barely registered. Shock hummed through her veins, loud and relentless. She had almost been taken. The door opened without a knock. He walked in like a storm that had finally broken through restraint. His jacket was gone, his shirt stained dark at the cuff. Not with her blood, she realized distantly, but someone else's. His jaw was tight, eyes blazing with something she had never seen before. Fear. Not calculated, not controlled. Real. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. The words came out harsh, but his hands were already reaching for her, stopping just short, as if he was afraid to touch her too hard, or afraid of what he might feel if he did. "I'm fine," she whispered, though her voice shook. "I think—" "That's not an answer," he snapped. He crouched in front of her, finally gripping her wrists, turning her hands gently, inspecting every scrape with a precision that bordered on obsession. When his fingers brushed the cut on her side, she flinched. His breath hitched. "You're bleeding." "It's not bad." His eyes lifted to hers, dark and furious. "It's unacceptable." She swallowed. "They tried to take me." "I know," he said tightly. "They won't try again." The certainty in his voice should have comforted her. Instead, it made her chest ache. "You lost control out there," she said softly. He went still. "I heard you," she continued. "What you said. What you promised." Silence stretched between them, thick and dangerous. "That wasn't strategy," she said. "That was personal." His jaw clenched. "You don't understand." "Then explain it," she challenged, surprising herself with the steadiness of her tone. "Because you told me this was about leverage, about claims, about deterrence." He rose abruptly and turned away, pacing once like a caged animal before stopping near the window, his hands fisted at his sides. "I claimed you to keep others away," he said. "That was the plan." "And now?" His reflection stared back at him in the glass, hard, scarred, a man used to winning wars by never letting emotion near the trigger. "And now," he said quietly, "the thought of losing you makes me reckless." The admission cracked the room open. Lena's breath caught. "You're not reckless." "I was today," he snapped back, then exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "I broke protocol. I chased instead of contained. I nearly exposed assets I've protected for years." She stood slowly, the blanket slipping from her shoulders as she took a step toward him. "Because of me." He turned, eyes locking onto hers. "Yes." The word landed heavy and undeniable. "You're not supposed to care like this," she said. "No," he agreed. "I'm not." "Then why do you?" For a long moment he didn't answer. When he did, his voice was lower, stripped of armor. "Because you stopped being a symbol the moment you looked at me like I wasn't a monster." Her chest tightened painfully. "I told myself this was possession," he continued. "A name, a shield, something to project power." He stepped closer now, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, the tension vibrating under his skin. "But when they touched you," he said, voice rough, All I could think was that I was too late. Her eyes burned. I don't care what they think you are, he said. Leverage, currency, proof. He lifted her chin gently, forcing her to meet his gaze. You're not just a symbol, he said. You're mine because I choose you, not because I need you. The words sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with fear. And that scares you, she whispered. Yes, he admitted. The room was quiet now. No alarms, no shouting. Just the aftermath of something neither of them could take back. She reached for his hand, surprising them both. You don't get to decide everything for me. His grip tightened around her fingers. I know. But if you're going to claim me, she said softly, don't lie about why. His gaze searched her face, raw and unguarded. I won't, he said. The silence that followed wasn't cold. It was intimate, dangerous in a different way. Because in that moment, Lena understood the truth beneath the fear and the violence and the control. The claim had stopped being strategy, and the man who never lost control had finally admitted she mattered far more than power ever did. The choice didn't come with raised voices or locked doors. It came the next morning, when the compound was quiet again and the smell of smoke had finally faded from the air. Lena stood at the window, watching guards move through the courtyard with renewed precision, every step measured, every glance sharper than before. The world had adjusted around her near absence. That alone told her how close everything had come to breaking. He joined her without a sound. You can still disappear, he said. She didn't turn right away. The words landed softly, but they carried weight, real weight, not the illusion of freedom he'd dangled before. I can make it clean, he continued. New name, new country, no digital trail. No one connects you to me again. And the people who tried to take me? She asked quietly. They won't find you, he said, or anyone else. She believed him. That was the terrifying part. Lena finally turned to face him. He looked different this morning. Not calmer, if anything more dangerous, but resolved in a way she hadn't seen before. Like he'd already accepted whatever answer she gave, even if it cost him something. And the other option? She asked. He held her gaze. You stay. That's not an option, she said bitterly. That's a sentence. No, he replied. It's a position. She laughed softly. You make it sound like a promotion. In my world, he said evenly. It is. She crossed her arms, feeling the bruise on her side pull. If I stay, I'm visible. Yes, I become a target. You already are. And I lose whatever normal life I had left. He didn't deny it. Yes. Silence stretched between them, thick with truths neither could soften. And if I disappear, she said slowly, I spend the rest of my life running, looking over my shoulder, wondering when someone finally figures it out. He nodded once. Yes. She exhaled, long and steady, and something inside her settled. I thought freedom meant leaving, she said. I thought power was something men like you took from people like me. His eyes sharpened, but he said nothing. But I've been powerless my whole life, she continued. With my ex, with my job, with the way I let other people decide what I was worth. She stepped closer, close enough now that the air between them felt charged. When they tried to take me yesterday, she said, I wasn't scared of dying. He stiffened. I was scared of being erased, she finished. His jaw tightened. I'm not choosing a cage, Lena said quietly. I'm choosing the only place where no one gets to decide my value for me. She reached for his hand, not tentative this time, but deliberate. If I stay, she said, I don't do it hidden. I don't do it as leverage or protection or property. His fingers closed around hers. Then how? I stand beside you, she said, where everyone can see. The silence that followed was absolute. You understand what that means, he said at last. Yes, she replied. It means I stop being hunted and start being dangerous. Something like pride flickered in his eyes. Not possession, recognition. You don't take my name to survive, he said. You take it to rule. Lena met his gaze, heart steady now. Then give it to me. He didn't hesitate. From the inside pocket of his jacket, he withdrew a phone, black, unmarked. He pressed it into her hand. From this moment on, he said, voice low and certain, you speak with my authority. My protection is no longer conditional. And the world? She asked. He leaned in, his mouth near her ear, his words meant only for her. The world will learn, he said, that you are not to be touched. Lena looked down at the phone, then back at him. What do they call me? She asked. His lips curved slightly, not a smile, but something far more dangerous. My name, he said. And as Lena accepted it, she knew she had crossed a line she would never step back over. She hadn't chosen safety. She had chosen power. The war didn't end with sirens or headlines. It ended quietly, the way things always did in his world, with messages unanswered, with names that stopped being spoken, with power shifting so subtly that only the people who mattered noticed. The threats faded first, then the watching eyes, then the tension that had lived beneath Lena's skin for weeks finally loosened its grip. She felt the change before she saw it. The guards relaxed, roots simplified. Doors that once locked behind her now opened with a nod instead of a code. The house, once a fortress, began to feel like something steadier, intentional, permanent, safe, in its own dangerous way. Lena stood on the terrace one evening, city lights flickering in the distance, the night air cool against her skin. She wore his coat without thinking about it now. It fit her like it had always been meant to. He joined her silently, resting a hand at the small of her back. Not possessive, not performative. Grounded. It's over, he said. She didn't ask how. She turned to face him instead, searching his eyes for the tension she'd grown used to seeing there. It was gone. Not replaced with softness, he would never be soft, but with certainty. They won't come again, he continued. They understand the line. And my ex? She asked quietly. His jaw tightened briefly. He made his choice. He'll live with it. She nodded, not pressing further. That chapter of her life felt distant now, small in a way it never had before. They stood in silence for a while, the city breathing beneath them. I never planned this, Lena said finally. He glanced at her. Neither did I. I sent a photo out of spite, she continued. I wanted to hurt someone who didn't deserve that much power over me. His gaze softened just a fraction. And instead? Instead, I found out what real power looks like. He turned fully toward her, studying her like he always did, like he was still measuring, still learning. You're different now, he said. So are you, she replied. The truth of it hung between them. She had stepped into his world and refused to disappear inside it. He had claimed her, and then learned how to stand beside her instead of in front of her. She reached for his hand, lacing her fingers through his with quiet certainty. You said I was yours, she said softly. I meant it, he replied. But it was never a game, she added. No, he agreed. It was a declaration. She smiled faintly. Funny, I never believed in things like that. And now? He asked. She looked at the city below, at the life she'd almost lost, at the woman she'd been when she pressed send without thinking. Now I know, she said, that being claimed isn't about being owned. His grip tightened slightly. What is it about, then? Being chosen, she said, and choosing back. The air between them shifted, no longer charged with fear or uncertainty, but with something steadier, something earned. He leaned down, pressing his forehead to hers. You meant to hurt one man. She laughed softly. I really did. And you ended up claimed by another, he said. She met his gaze, unafraid. Yes, she replied, and I wouldn't change a single thing. Below them, the city went on, unaware, untouched, ordinary. Above it all, Lana stood where she had chosen to stand. Not hidden, not afraid, not playing games. Because what began as a reckless photo had become something unbreakable. And for the first time in her life, being claimed didn't feel like losing herself. It felt like finally being seen.